Hey everyone, welcome back to the show for a brand new deep dive.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
I think so too. And this time, we are diving into the world of transpersonal coaching psychology, or TCP.
TCP, yeah.
TCP.
Mhm.
And, when I first heard that phrase, I have to admit, I thought psychology coaching, that sounds kind of dry, but actually when you start digging deeper, it's anything but.
It's really fascinating.
It really is. And today we're going to focus specifically on how TCP can actually help people grow from tough experiences.
Not just bounce back, but grow.
Not just bounce back. That's right.
Yeah.
Post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, exactly.
So before we jump into the really good stuff, let's give everyone a little bit of background about what TCP is and what kind of research we're looking at today.
Yes, it's good.
So TCP draws from a lot of different areas like psychology, spirituality, even mindfulness. It sees you as a whole person.
It does.
And it's gaining popularity as people look for ways to understand their experiences on a deeper level.
Right. I think people are really craving that holistic approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the most intriguing concepts I've come across in the TCP research is this idea of open awareness.
Oh, yeah. Open awareness, or OA.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's essential.
It is. It comes up in pretty much every article we looked at.
You can think of OA, like, imagine you're wearing those horse blinders.
Yeah.
You can only see what's directly in front of you.
Okay, I can picture that.
Open awareness is like taking those blinders off. Suddenly you see the bigger picture, everything you were missing before.
So it's about expanding your perspective, seeing things from different angles.
Exactly.
But how does that actually help someone grow from a difficult experience?
Well, that's where post-traumatic growth, or PTG, comes in.
Okay, PTG.
Jovan D'Angeli, one of the researchers we read, defines it as a profound shift that happens after trauma.
Okay.
It's not just about coping. It's about experiencing positive change in your life because of what you went through.
So not just surviving, but thriving.
Exactly.
And D'Angeli talks about 5 key areas where this growth can happen.
He does. The first is appreciation of life. People often talk about feeling incredibly grateful for simple things after trauma.
Like they're seeing the world with new eyes.
Exactly. Like, wow, I'm just happy to be alive after a close call.
Right.
And then there's strengthening of relationships. Going through something difficult can deepen connections or even help you form new bonds with people who've been through something similar.
Yeah, it's like that shared experience creates this powerful understanding and empathy.
Totally. And the third area is new possibilities.
Okay.
Trauma can be a catalyst for change. It forces you to reevaluate your priorities and sometimes leads you down a path you never would have considered before.
It's like that saying, sometimes you have to break down to break through.
Exactly. And then there's personal strength, that resilience you develop from having faced adversity.
Right.
It's not that the experience itself makes you stronger, but the way you choose to navigate it, the way you learn and grow from it.
So you come out the other side even more capable than before.
Right. And finally, there's spiritual change.
Okay.
This could be a shift in your belief system, a deeper connection to your faith, or even a newfound sense of purpose.
So it's not just about external changes, but an internal transformation as well.
It's both.
But you mentioned earlier that PTG is different from resilience.
Right.
Could you explain that a bit more?
Of course, resilience is more about bouncing back to your previous state after a setback.
Okay, so getting back to normal.
Exactly.
Right.
It's important, but PTG goes beyond that. It's
Yeah.
not about returning to who you were. It's about evolving into someone new, someone who's integrated that experience and come out the other side transformed.
So it's like the difference between repairing a broken vase and using those broken pieces to create a beautiful mosaic.
That's such a good analogy. I love
And
it.
TCP recognizes that this journey isn't always easy.
It's not.
There can be struggles, setbacks, even psychological distress along the way.
Right.
So that's where the role of a transpersonal coach comes in.
Exactly.
It can help guide people through those challenges and tap into that potential for growth.
They can. And their approach is unique in that they don't just focus on the past trauma, they focus on how it's impacting you right now.
So instead of dwelling on what happened, you look at how it's showing up in your life and your relationships at work, even in your body.
Precisely. And they help you connect the dots between those present-day patterns and the original experience so you can start to heal and grow.
Okay, I'm starting to see how it all fits together, but I'm really curious to see how this plays out in real life.
Me too.
Are there examples of people who've actually experienced this kind of growth?
Oh, yeah. Tons.
Yeah.
The research is full of fascinating case studies that show PTG in action.
Okay, great. Let's hear some.
One that really stood out to me was Amy McMillan's work with a woman in her 70s who was constantly busy, always on the go.
Oh, she sounds like a lot of people I know.
Right, always rushing around, never taking a break.
Yeah.
But through TCP, this woman discovered that her busyness was linked to anxiety stemming from her childhood.
Wow.
She developed this coping mechanism of staying busy to avoid those uncomfortable emotions.
It's like she was running from her past without even realizing it.
Exactly. And Macmillan used a technique called somatic open awareness, which basically means bringing your body's wisdom into the process.
Okay, so it's not just about talking through things in your head.
Right. It's about tuning into your physical sensations and what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And through this technique, this woman was able to understand the root of her anxiety and finally experience true relaxation.
That's amazing. So it wasn't about forcing herself to relax. It was about understanding where that need to be busy was coming from and then shifting her awareness.
Exactly. And that's just one example. Macmillan also worked with another client who was struggling to reconnect with her creativity after some difficult years.
That's so relatable. I think everyone goes through times when they lose touch with the things that bring them joy.
They do, and through open awareness, this client realized that fear was blocking her creative expression.
Fear of failure, fear of judgment.
It could be any number of things, but by bringing it into her awareness, she was able to start taking steps to overcome it. She created space in her life for writing and eventually reclaimed that creative power.
These case studies are so inspiring. They really show how transformation is possible, even in the midst of difficult experiences.
They do. It's a testament to the human capacity for growth and the power of TCP to unlock that potential. But as with any powerful tool, there are ethical considerations.
Right. We are talking about some pretty deep stuff here. What kind of ethical guidelines are there for transpersonal coaches?
Well, another expert we read, Haniel Geldenhuys, has written a lot about the ethics of TCP.
Okay.
He emphasizes that coaches need to be aware of their limitations, respect the client's boundaries, and know when to refer them to another professional.
So knowing when a client's needs are beyond the scope of coaching.
Right. And he also talks about the potential for energy transfer between the coach and the client in the held space of the coaching session.
This held space idea, it's a bit mystical, isn't it?
It is a powerful concept. It's not just a physical space. It's an energetic and emotional container that the coach creates to support the client's journey. But this energy transfer that can happen within that space needs to be managed responsibly.
So the coach's energy could affect the client and vice versa.
Yes, and that's why it's so important for coaches to be aware of their own energy and how it might impact the client. It's about prioritizing the client's needs above all else.
It sounds like TCP involves a lot of intuition and sensitivity on the part of the coach.
It does, and Geldenhuys really emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and ongoing personal development for coaches. They need to be tending to their own inner work so they can show up fully and ethically for their clients.
This is fascinating. We've covered a lot already, from understanding what TCP is to exploring PTG and even touching on those ethical considerations. Before we continue, I think it would be great to dive into more of those case studies you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. There are so many compelling examples of how TCP can help people transform their lives. When we come back, we'll explore Sarah McCunn's work with clients who have had psychedelic experiences and how TCP can help them integrate those insights into their everyday lives.
Sounds intriguing. Looking forward to learning more about that. So before the break, we were talking about the ethical side of things in TCP, and something you mentioned earlier really caught my attention. It was that idea of a held space and how important it is for transformation. I have to admit, it sounds kind of mystical to me. Can you break it down a bit more?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's not as mysterious as it might sound at first. Think of it this way. You know how sometimes you feel more comfortable opening up and sharing things in certain environments? Like maybe a cozy living room with a fireplace feels more inviting than a sterile, brightly lit office.
Yeah, I get that environment definitely plays a role.
Right. So a held space in TCP is kind of like creating that safe, welcoming environment, but it goes deeper than the physical setting. It's more about the energy and presence the coach brings to the session, creating a container of trust and respect where the client feels safe to explore their inner world.
So it's like setting the stage for deep work to happen, but the coach is an active part of that stage, not just a passive observer.
Exactly. And open awareness plays a big role here. It's like the coach is holding this space of expanded awareness for the client, which allows them to access their own wisdom and insights.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does intuition fit into all of this? Is that something a coach actively develops, or is it more about just trusting their gut feeling?
Well, it's both. Intuition is a key part of TCP, but it's not about just randomly following hunches. It's more about cultivating this deep inner knowing and learning to discern what's truly helpful for the client.
So it's like any other skill you can hone and develop.
Exactly. Geldenhuys the expert
Yeah.
we talked about who focuses on ethical practice.
Yeah.
He talks about how important it is for coaches to be aware of their own stuff.
You mean their own baggage, their own unresolved issues?
Exactly. Because if a coach isn't aware of those things, they could unintentionally project them onto the client, which wouldn't be helpful.
Makes sense. It's like you need to do your own inner work so you can hold that clear space for someone else.
Right. And he also talks about how important supervision is for transpersonal coaches, having a space to process their own experiences and get feedback from more experienced practitioners.
That sounds so valuable, especially when you're dealing with other people's deep emotions and vulnerabilities.
It is. It helps make sure the coach stays grounded and centered so they can hold that space effectively.
Okay. But I know you're eager to hear about those fascinating case studies.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
You were about to tell me about Sarah McCunn's work with clients who've had psychedelic experiences.
Right. McCunn uses TCP in her work with people who are processing experiences from psychedelic retreats.
Okay.
These retreats often involve really powerful insights and shifts in perspective, but sometimes it can be challenging to integrate those back into everyday life. That makes sense. It's like coming back from this incredible journey and having to figure out how it all fits into your regular life.
Exactly. And that's where TCP comes in. It provides that framework, that supportive space for processing those experiences and making them meaningful.
So it's not just about the experience itself, it's about what you do with it afterwards.
Exactly.
Hmm.
For example, one of McCunn's clients, a man named Henry, had been struggling with anxiety for a long time.
Okay.
And after attending a psilocybin retreat, he felt this huge sense of relief, like he had finally overcome his anxiety.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, but when he got back to work, an incident triggered those familiar feelings of anxiety and rejection. He felt like he was back at square one.
Oh, I bet that was so frustrating. Like taking 2 steps forward just to get knocked back again?
Exactly. And so through TCP and somatic exploration, remember, that's about tuning into the body's wisdom.
Yeah.
Henry realized that he was carrying the weight of past traumas in his body, specifically in his shoulders.
It's like those experiences get stored up and we carry them around without even realizing it.
Exactly. And by bringing awareness to those sensations, Henry could start to release that tension and process those underlying emotions.
So it's not just talk therapy, it's about working with the body as well.
Yes. Another one of McCunn's clients had a similar experience. After working with her inner child in open awareness, she was able to have this really profound emotional release, which really built on those breakthroughs from the psychedelic retreat.
So the retreat opened her up to these insights, and then TCP helped her go even deeper with them.
Right. McCunn talks about how that safe, supportive container of DCP sessions allowed her clients to really lean into what was coming up, make unusual connections, and reach surprising conclusions that they could actually do something with.
It's like TCP bridges that gap between the extraordinary and the everyday, helping ground those insights and make them practical.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And Tim Morley, another TCP practitioner who specializes in working with people who've had psychedelic experiences, he talks about how important the preparation before the retreat is, as well as the integration afterwards.
So TCP isn't just about processing what happened, it's about setting the stage for the experience itself.
Exactly. Morley says that using TCP to help people set intentions, explore their fears, and basically get in the right headspace before the retreat can make a huge difference.
It's like preparing for a hike. You're not going in blind.
That's a great analogy. And he also emphasizes how important it is to address any anxieties or limiting beliefs in open awareness before the retreat. It's like removing obstacles that might get in the way.
Makes sense. And then after the retreat, TCP helps people unpack what often are profound, sometimes challenging experiences.
Right. It's about making sense of it all, seeing how those insights apply to your life and creating lasting change. This is where the coach's intuition and skill in holding space becomes so valuable.
Because they're guiding the client without imposing their own beliefs.
Exactly. It's about trusting the client's own wisdom to emerge.
That must take a lot of self-awareness.
It does. And Morley really emphasizes that the coach's personal development and commitment to practices like mindfulness are so crucial for being able to do this effectively.
It's like the coach's inner work becomes an essential part of their ability to support their clients. It's not just techniques, it's about embodying it.
I love that word embodiment.
Yeah.
That's really at the heart of TCP, embodying those principles of awareness, compassion, and interconnectedness.
And these examples show how TCP can be used for so many different challenges, from everyday anxieties to integrating life-changing experiences. But before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. You mentioned earlier that there's this potential for energy transfer between the coach and the client. I'm curious to hear more about that.
Okay, let's dive into that. It can be a delicate aspect of working in the held space, but a really important one to understand.
So before the break, we were getting into this idea of energy transfer between the coach and the client in TCP, and I'm really curious to hear more about that.
It is a fascinating thing to think about. When you create that really deep connection and trust in the held space, it opens up the possibility for subtle energy to flow between the coach and the client. It's not something you can see or measure, but it's something that a lot of practitioners feel is a really important factor.
Okay. I can see how that could be tricky to navigate if energy is flowing back and forth. Couldn't that get a little messy?
Yeah, it could, which is why ethical and responsible practice is so important. Geldenhuys suggests that coaches need to be really aware of their own energy and how it might impact the client, and also the potential for the client's energy to affect them.
So it's kind of like being an emotional sponge absorbing some of what the client is bringing to the session.
That's a good way to think about it. And it's not always a bad thing sometimes that shared energy can actually help deepen the connection and facilitate healing. But it is important for coaches to have practices in place to protect their own well-being so they don't get overwhelmed or depleted.
Yeah, that makes sense. You need to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. What kind of practices are we talking about here?
Well, Geldenhuys recommends using rituals to clearly separate the coaching space from your personal life. That could be something as simple as lighting a candle before and after a session, or having a specific meditation you do to ground yourself.
So it's about creating that symbolic boundary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also emphasizes the importance of self-reflection, processing your own experiences and emotions, and seeking support from other professionals when you need it. Basically, making sure you have your own self-care routine and a good support system so you don't burn out.
Right. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Hmm.
So speaking of pouring from a full cup, let's get back to those inspiring case studies. I'd love to hear more examples of how TCP helps people through those big life transitions.
Okay, yeah. Those transitions can be a huge opportunity for growth.
They can. They really can.
Micha Varmuza, another practitioner to read about, focuses on supporting women going through transition, especially those in midlife who might be questioning their identity, their purpose, what they really want.
Yeah, that can be a really tough time trying to figure out who you are in that next chapter.
It can be. And Varmuza talks about how she uses TCP and especially open awareness to help her clients navigate those transitions and reconnect with themselves.
Do you have an example you can share?
Yeah, sure. Well, one of her clients was feeling really lost and overwhelmed, juggling work and family and aging parents. It was like she had lost herself somewhere along the way.
That's a lot to deal with. I can see how that would lead to feeling burned out and disconnected.
It does. And so Varmuza guided her through a process of open awareness, encouraging her to just observe her thoughts and feelings and body sensations without judgment.
Just hitting the pause button on all that mental chatter.
Exactly. And through this practice, the client had this amazing experience connecting with nature. She felt a sense of peace and awe and renewed energy just from being present with the trees and the sky.
There's something about nature that can really do that, isn't there? It's like it reminds us that we're part of something bigger.
It does. And for this client, that connection with nature was a real turning point. It sparked a sense of hope and aliveness that she had been missing.
It's like she tapped into this source of strength that was always there, but she couldn't see it until she shifted her awareness.
Right. And as they worked together, they uncovered another layer to her experience, an addiction to stress. She'd grown up in a family where there wasn't a lot of emotional support, so she learned to cope by pushing herself and staying busy.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Always needing to be on, always needing to prove yourself.
It is a really common pattern.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that her work actually involved caring for children, which she realized was fulfilling a need that had gone unmet in her own childhood.
Oh, wow. So it's like she was drawn to that role unconsciously.
Exactly. And through TCP, she was able to bring that awareness to the surface and start to heal those old wounds. It's a beautiful example of how those challenging experiences can become something positive,
So it's not just about healing those personal wounds. It's about creating something good in the world.
right? It's about that ripple effect. When we heal ourselves, we heal our relationships and our communities.
I love that idea. And Christine Miskelly, another practitioner we've been learning about, focuses on coaching older adults. She uses PCP to help people navigate the unique challenges of aging, dealing with loss, finding a new sense of purpose, and really embracing the later stages of life. That's so important. Our society doesn't always value the wisdom and experience of older adults.
That's true. But Ms. Kelly emphasizes that aging doesn't have to be about decline. It can be about deepening spiritual growth, finding new ways to contribute to the world. TCP helps access that wisdom that comes from a lifetime of experience.
It's like this inner wellspring that's often overlooked.
Yeah, exactly. And she shares how open awareness can help older clients connect with that wisdom and find a sense of peace and acceptance, even with those physical limitations and losses.
That's beautiful. It's like reframing aging as this natural part of life instead of something to be afraid of.
Exactly. And TCP provides a framework for that shift, helping us embrace every stage of life.
Wow, this deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what TCP is all about and how it can help people transform their lives.
Me too. It's such a rich and fascinating approach to personal growth and healing.
What's your biggest takeaway from all of this?
For me, it's the reminder that transformation is always possible no matter what age you are or what you're going through.
Yeah,
TC Key helps us see that we all have that capacity for growth and healing, even in the face of really tough challenges.
I love that. It's about seeing those challenges as opportunities for growth and trusting the wisdom that comes when we create the right conditions.
Exactly. And it's so inspiring to see how TCP is being used to support people from all walks of life. It really does feel like there's something here for everyone.
Absolutely. So, dear listeners, if any of this resonates with you, we encourage you to explore these ideas further. Maybe even find a transpersonal coach or some resources that speak to you.
And as you go about your day, we'll leave you with this thought-provoking question. What might shift in your life if you viewed those challenges not as obstacles, but as potential stepping stones on your path to growth?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of transpersonal coaching psychology. It's been a real pleasure exploring these ideas with you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.